Hi there. This video is aimed at being a self-contained tutorial of the restricted 90% speedrun category of Afterimage. As a forewarning, this is going to be a quite comprehensive video, so please be understanding of this in advance, and feel free to make use of the timestamps in the description to jump between certain parts of the video. If you haven't already checked out the movement guide I wrote for speedrunning this game, I highly recommend taking a look at it before watching this video, or at least having it open alongside the video, for movement techniques that will be referenced throughout the video. It is linked in both the description and on the guides tab of Afterimage's speedrun.com page. Additionally, it's worth noting that the best way to practice this game is using save files that start from specific sections of the run that you're doing. Speedrun.com has some save files for 90% that you can use to get started, but as you practice, I highly recommend making save file snapshots of your own to suit your own practice needs. Finally, let's talk a bit about some of the options you can use for speedrunning this game that I personally use when I'm running any category. So in your game settings, I like having camera shake off. It's by default on. This helps with generally reading your attack speed with crouch canceling or movement a little more easily, but it's not a big deal. It's not something that's 100% necessary to have. Everything else here can be left alone, or can be set however you'd like. For video settings, this actually affects how the run can play out quite heavily. I just recommend having one video setting that is well suited for your PC specs or whatever setup you have, and just sticking with it as you practice the game. The issue with changing any of these settings is that they, especially for the quality setting, it affects how fast enemies load in certain areas, which will have non-trivial impact on the sections of the run that you practice and just parts of the run in general. The speedrunners haven't found the setting that's exactly optimal for all situations, such as time, such as ease of traversal, those sort of things. So again, it's just recommended to use whatever setting is most suited for your PC setup. Although do keep in mind that if you play on a lower setting, there are some parts of the run where, because enemies load in much more slowly, those enemies might just be completely missing altogether, which may or may not be a good thing overall. For some parts, such as the Holy Grounds sequence breaks, that could be a detrimental thing. For some sections, such as Field of Geo, that could be a beneficial thing. So it really just depends on the part of the run, which is why I just recommend sticking with one quality setting and just using that for the rest of your time speedrunning this game. The other two options don't matter as much, although it's definitely worth ensuring that you try to get as high of a frame rate as you can. So if you're unable to play on borderless with a consistent high frame rate, then I recommend just playing on full screen or something that will allow you to get the highest frame rate that you can possibly get. Speaking of which, if you have the capability of playing this game at higher than 60 FPS, something such as 120 FPS, that's ideal. 60 FPS is really slow for this game, and it's hard to describe, but the runners have found it to be less than ideal for running overall. So if you're able to play at 120 FPS, then it might be the best experience you can possibly get. The things with controls, there's not really much to mention here. You can set most of them however you'd like, although one suggestion I should make right off the bat is that D-pad is typically better if you're playing on controller than left analog stick movement. D-pad movement allows you to move with much greater control, especially when it comes to dash sliding. But also when you start learning crouch cancel attacking, which we'll talk about in the actual run tutorial, it's much easier to tap crouch with the D-pad than it is with the left analog stick, at least for most people. Of course, use whatever you're most comfortable with. Now, if you're playing on keyboard, your controls won't really matter too much. Just use whatever you're fine with using. And same idea if you're playing on something like an arcade controller or a hitbox style arcade stick. When I say hitbox style, I mean like an arcade stick that does not have a lever. So it's an all buttons arcade controller, pretty much. But yeah, with those out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the run itself. So if you're just starting with running Afterimage restricted any percent, I highly recommend just learning on the normal difficulty, and later on you can take an upgrade to the advanced difficulty. Normal difficulty was something that was added in the December 2023 update to make the game a little easier. The specific things it changes are the armor value of enemies, meaning they'll be dealt more damage when you attack them because they have less defense points, as well as the fact that you don't take damage from hazards. If you take damage from a spike hazard, for example, you'll just be sent back. You won't take any damage at all. That really helps for learning the game. Not to mention, enemies deal less damage to you. So that's really helpful for learning boss fights and ensuring that you can get a completed run with less difficulty. Advanced was the difficulty that the game released on, but it's since been changed to become the advanced difficulty instead of, being the original difficulty of the game. Most runners that have been running since around the game released have been running on advanced for a while, so they just got used to it. And it's something that you can take on once you get more comfortable with the game. But again, I highly recommend starting with normal. Today we'll be using normal to demonstrate, but keep in mind that you can always switch to advanced while you're even inside the save file, as long as you just go to the pause menu, options, and then switch the difficulty. So when you're starting the run, just hold to skip both of these cutscenes. Something that you'll realize is that, unfortunately, the amount of time you have for both of those hold to skips, or between both those hold to skips, is based on sometimes the frame rate of your game, sometimes how powerful your PC is. It's really unfortunate, but you'll notice it especially on like the Switch platform or on consoles, where the time between both hold to skips is a little bit longer. That's, again, depending on the frame rate as well as the power of your PC. Alright, so after you hold to skip both times, just skip the dialogue that you have with Ifri, and then you can start dashing this way. Again, you start with the dash ability, so just make sure that you make use of it as your main movement all the time. Also, when you're dropping down between these platforms, it's not always good to mash down, because this game doesn't always give you the drop down input. If you're mashing down, sometimes it'll give you jump, even when you're already on the ground. So it's better to just learn the timing of the drop down, and you'll still drop down these platforms fast enough. So after that, just dash. This section is really easy. This is the initial portion of Rubiwood Desert. Just make sure you jump over these crabs, and I recommend just walking. If you're not sure whether you're going to clear these gaps, then just walk until you get close to them and then dash over them. That's the safest way to do it, because you lose a lot of time if you get hit by these spikes or if you don't make the clear of the gap. So afterwards, you can just platform up. The potion that's here is fine to get when you're starting out. Just have an extra one. That way, you can complete a run. And I think being able to complete a run is most important, and then you can start worrying about improving your time from there. So after this, you just platform up again. Something to keep in mind from the start of your speedrunning journey with this game is that you want to try to get low jump heights. The lower the jump height, the better, because it'll just allow you to have better control of your character that, will build great habits for platforming the more you get comfortable with the game. So this bluebird that we killed is normally at the spot, but of course, normally we'd just be dropping down. Then we dash. Make sure to kill these frogs, because it's faster to kill them than to damage boost past them. You could also just ignore them, but honestly, it's a little bit hard to ignore them while still platforming quickly. After this, the first boss down here, Lush Wolf, is the scripted death boss fight. This is where we start to use our first crouch cancel technique. And actually, the way you want to drop down into this boss fight is not the way I did it there. So I'm going to exit out. It's going to cause us to start over, but it's no big deal. I can just show everything in one full sweep. And sorry for the speed of this tutorial, but I want to make it as comprehensive and self-contained as possible. So we're just going to start from here. I'll show the full thing from the top. And something you'll see some runners do, myself included especially, is using what's called weapon float, which is, you know, using your weapon attack in midair to suspend yourself. And that bluebird you just want to tap and move on. There's no need to try to kill it, since it only dies in 2 shots. But using the weapon float to like suspend yourself in the air is good just for more air control. And also, if you do it, oh wow, this bluebird followed me all the way up here. If you do it when you're about to land on a platform that's above you, then you actually do what's called a ledge grab, which allows you to land much faster. It doesn't work on all ledges, but you see like it worked on that one. And normally you'd have to like kind of wait till you land, but the weapon float allows you to like land faster, and it's non-trivial if you do it over time in the run, so it's a good habit to start thinking about. In any case, once you dash up here, you want to dash and then try to dash when you land. And here's the Lush Wolf boss fight. This is where we first start using crouch cancel attacking, and it's kind of hard to describe how you do it fast, but real quick before I describe it more, the second part of this fight is best done by standing at the right spacing so that the Lush Wolf instantly kills you with a laser attack. And that usually saves 2 seconds in this first section of the run. After which, of course, we're taken into the next part of Rubiwood Desert, scripted death cutscene. Skip all the dialogue, of course. Hold to skip after this. Skip more dialogue with Ifri. We're now at the confluence right here. So that Lush Wolf boss fight, right? Again, we stood at the spacing. The spacing that you saw me stand at is basically a good place to stand. You could also stand at numerous other spacings. I'll leave it to you, the runner, to find those spacings and get comfortable with whatever spacing is best suited for yourself. But the good thing to keep in mind is that you can always sweet spot where you're spacing using what's called stutter stepping, which is just doing a walk and then a crouch to stop yourself. This is a good way to precisely move in the direction that you desire. Because otherwise, if you just tap the directional, horizontal directions, you're not going to get as much precision in your spacing where you're positioned. But stutter stepping or crouch walking, walk squatting, however you want to call it, is much more precise while still allowing for you to get in the position that you want to get into. Okay, so this part of the run, right? If you're new, I recommend, like, you don't really need to do this on normal, to be honest, but it's still fine to do this when you're starting out. Go ahead and get this potion that's to the right. Once you get more comfortable with the run, you can skip that potion and save a lot of time. So right here, we dash up this incline, speak to 42, skip the cutscene, or skip the dialogue, skip the do as well. We don't need to get that do for any percent. And then you just dash up these inclines. The way you dash up these inclines is player per player, but I like damage boosting by that bird. Tap all these bluebirds because otherwise they just get in the way. And then you want to grab this wooden scythe upgrade right away and start using it as your main combat, at least against enemies. And what I do for what we're going to now call the experience route, and this experience route is only for the purposes of making sure that we get to at least level 8 before we get to Auss. This matters mostly for the advanced difficulty where Auss's damage values are such that she would one-shot you if you're not level 8 by then with the +5 HP talent point. But for normal, you're going to get 2-shot anyway, so it won't matter as much. But still worth keeping in mind when you're starting out, because again, I'm using the assumption that you're eventually going to be running on the advanced difficulty. And for that matter, I'll probably just change to advanced midway through this run, just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. But for now, just keep this in mind. But after you grab the wooden scythe, as of the, I believe, 1.2 or 1.3 update, I can't remember the number right now, but there's an update that happened earlier this year that causes your first weapon that's picked up for the respective weapon slot to be auto-equipped. So you no longer need to open the menu for equipping the wooden scythe. You can just use it right away. You should crouch cancel attack this bird. Basically, the idea for the XP route is that you want to kill a bird in this area, or if you're not able to kill a bird, you want to kill a big enemy and another big enemy later, pretty much. It's kind of weird to describe right now, but this is one of the big enemies we killed. You got to kill one more big enemy before we leave, and then you'll be able to see that we reach the right level before we get to Guider, and then we'll later on be able to reach the right level before we get to Auss. But for now, just go ahead and kill this bird that you see here. Jump dash into this hold to skip cutscene, skip the dialogue, grab this echo because it's part of the experience route. Now what we're going to do next here is something known as a long jump. I described it in my written movement guide, but it's to skip the boss fight that's to the left. What you want to do to get this long jump is basically just jump, dash, and then weapon float. Really easy. 100% consistent every time. You can also do jump, weapon float, dash, but this is a little bit like this only saves a little bit of time. This is basically just to sweet spot your spacing, because you save a slight fraction of a second more time if you're closer to landing on this platform by the time you end your dash. And the weapon float sometimes won't do that if you do it after the dash, so that's why I do weapon float first and then dash. But honestly, doing dash weapon float is perfectly fine. It's just that you might not be at the right height, which can cause problems. So do it however you're most comfortable doing it, but that's the basic idea of doing the long jump there. So after you do the long jump, you want to dash down here, and then once you land, you basically want to, because there's going to be like a what's it called, a cutscene trigger right here. You want to land on this bottom platform such that when you dash for the last time before the cutscene locks you in, you're as close to forgot her name. You're as close to your mentor as possible. I apologize for not remembering her name right now, but there's so much going on in my mind to do this tutorial. So let's do it all in one go. So dash, dash, dash. So that way we're really close to her, right, when we go into the cutscene. Otherwise, if you're not here, you'll be a lot like further back, and you'll have to waste time doing another dash to get in, which, you know, this saves a non-trivial amount of time. So it's worth pointing that out. So skip the dialogue, tap her with the crouch cancels like 5 times or so, skip the dialogue after that, and then boom. Now you'll notice on the input display, the way I'm skipping dialogue is by pressing both the confirm and back buttons at the same time. These are the buttons that are set in your UI controls, I believe. So we can go there and just quickly see. Confirm and cancel. We can't even change them. But it would be those buttons. So the way I do it is mashing both of them together. Some runners exchange between mashing them, but basically this is the optimal way to mash through dialogue. You can also just like mash one button if you're more comfortable with that, and it is gonna lose you more time throughout the run, but it's not a big deal. Like, again, if you're having trouble mashing through the dialogue with 2 buttons, then mashing with 1 button is perfectly fine. But the optimal way to mash through dialogue is with both confirm and back, either exchanging them or doing both at the same time. So we dash up here. Normally, if you're just out of that cutscene, the bird's gonna be a little closer. But since we waited a little bit, the bird's farther away. This is the second bird I kill, what we call the big enemy. This is the second big enemy I kill as part of the experience route. You don't have to kill this one. You can also kill the crab that comes up later. You can also kill another bird that we will see to the left if you end up getting the talent point that's to the left here. But I don't end up going there, so that's why we killed the bird that's down here. So after this platform, this is another big enemy that you can choose to kill if you want, but if you already killed 2 birds before, then you don't need to kill this crab. All right, after this, we go down and we'll be in Rainbow Plains. And here you don't want to kill any enemies, except a few. There's gonna be a few we do kill, but from here on, it's gonna be worth pointing out that for any percent, restricted any percent, the route that I'll be showing in this video will be needing 2 resting potions before we make it further into the run. We're going to buy those 2 resting potions from the merchant known as Alice in Resting Town. And in order to have the money to be able to afford it, we have to break 2 dew crystals before then. The fastest dew crystals to break are, you have 3 choices between them. You can either break this one that you see here, or you can break the next 2 that are further to the east in Rainbow Plains. I'll go ahead and break this one as well as the other 2 just to show you all 3, but I'm only going to be buying 2 resting potions still, so I'll have some leftover money. But yeah, the way you break this, the best way to do it is to kind of stand in the middle and then crouch cancel attack it. And let's talk about crouch cancel attacking now. I think this is a good time to do so. So crouch cancel attacking. I didn't talk about this in my movement technique guide, so it's worth just explaining this in full detail because I want this video to be self-contained as possible. I don't want you to have to be redirected to another video where I talk about crouch cancel attacking. So if you don't need to hear about crouch cancel attacking, please feel free to skip past this chapter in the description timestamps. So crouch cancel attacking is something that allows you to massively improve your DPS from what would otherwise be the standard attack rotation of this game, which would be standing attack, crouching attack, jumping attack, right? For the one-handed sword, for example, your normal attack rotation would be this, 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 this. Something like that, right? Or it could be standing attack, jump attack, jump attack. But those are your option for the standard attack rotation, right? And similarly for Scythe, it would be something like this. But crouch cancel attacking is like an advanced speedrun technique that runners use now because it's much, much faster form of DPS. And it's done by basically using the same concept as you would for canceling standing attack and a crouching attack. But actually, instead of doing crouching attack, you just go into crouch. Because it turns out that standing attack can just be canceled in a crouch just like that. Now, ideally, you want to cancel in the crouch. You want to be crouching as little time as possible. Because the less time you crouch for, the sooner you'll be able to stand up, and that means the sooner you'll be able to go into standing attack again. So, to put it simply, you standing attack, you tap crouch, standing attack, tap crouch, standing attack, tap crouch, and you try to bring up the speed. And once you understand the rhythm, you can go really, really fast. And similar thing for Scythe. Scythe is pretty much the exact same. Now here's the caveat. For Scythe and other slow weapons, you have to wait longer because the startup frames of those respective weapon classes are a bit longer than for like Sword, for example, where it's really quick. For Scythe, it's much longer, so you actually have to wait a little bit before you crouch. And the best way to get a feel for the rhythm is to go really slowly when you're starting out. Just focus on getting the Scythe standing attack to hit, and once you see it hits, you just react and go ahead and tap crouch. That's the best way to get started. And then after you react, tap crouch and stand up again, just go for that standing attack. So that's the best way to get started. And then later on, you can start like kind of canceling out of the standing attack earlier, and then you'll get a feel for when, you know, is the right time to go into crouch and stand up again. So that's the basic idea of crouch cancel attacking. We're going to see this in action against the boss that's coming up, triple question marks, which is known as Guider 1 by speedrunners. So you'll be able to see that in action once we get there. But yeah, going back to destroying dew crystals, standing in the middle is ideal because that means when you break the dew for each hit, they won't scatter all over the place. You'll be able to collect them as they come out of the dew crystal. That way you won't have to move around as much, and this saves a lot more time than like standing at the tip or standing away from it. Okay, we're gonna dash this way again. Ifri's gonna comment on the bird that comes by. Before he comments on the bird, just, you know, you can just wait here. It's not a good idea to keep dashing because then you'll have to jump back up here after the cutscene. So basically, after you get to this platform, just wait for Ifri to comment on the bird, skip the dialogue, and then do a jump. You don't have to weapon float for this jump, just jump and dash is fine. But if you want to get comfortable with maintaining your jump height with weapon floats, you can go ahead and weapon float here, and that will technically cut some air time from this jump. Get this echo, and if you level it up to level 2 by this echo, good job. You did everything correctly with the XP route so far. If you did not level up and you're still level 1, that means you didn't kill 2 big enemies and you didn't get the echo that's in Rubiwood Desert. Make sure you do that before you continue from here. You might have to restart the run, unfortunately, if you didn't, but it should be pretty easy to get to level 2 and have a little bit of bonus XP after that if you did everything I mentioned before. Continue to jump over these enemies. They're going to have... The red icon should disappear by now because we're level 2. Keep going. Here's the second dew that you can go ahead and get. Now, this enemy you see here is not part of the XP route. You don't need to kill it, and I'm not going to, but make sure you get this dew because this is one of the dews that you can get for the 2 RPs that we're going to buy from Alice in Wrestling Town. So, the third dew crystal that you can get is coming up later. Make sure you hit this jump to go underneath so that we can get the talent point that's hidden behind this this treehouse stump, I guess. This talent point's important because it allows us to get a bonus main weapon attack up before we fight the triple question marks boss, Guider 1, and that will help improve our DPS for that fight since it's really long, and also just overall make the fight faster. And actually, for that matter, I know I mentioned I was going to switch to advanced midway through the run, but I'm actually going to do it right now because I feel like it's important to show the importance of this XP route in real time. But after you get the talent point, go this way up here. Make sure you dodge the archer and the melee weapon guy. Press that switch and hold the skip. The hold to skip timing is weird. Make sure you hold the skip after you already press the switch. Now for hold to skip, you can use either the directional D-pad or you can use the face buttons. I prefer to use the directional D-pad because it's like less buggy. It's kind of weird to describe, but it is less buggy in my experience. Now you'll notice I destroyed that dew crystal. I'm gonna try to heal myself for the boss, but I destroyed this dew crystal. That is the dew crystal that is the third option. And honestly, if you do the last two dew crystals I pointed out, those are probably among the fastest ones you can use to buy the resting potions that we're going to get after the boss fight. It's a good idea when you're starting out to just go ahead and save at this confluence before the next boss, because it might require a little bit of practice. Keep dashing up here. At some point before you fight Guider 1, make sure to open the menu, slide twice with your R1 button or your right bumper, or if you're on keyboard, whatever corresponding UI control corresponds to that. You go to the talent menu and you want to give yourself main weapon attack up, main weapon attack up. Very simple menu. Just these two, because these are the fastest two main weapon attacks to reach, and it'll provide you some more damage for the boss fight. And if you did everything right, you'll see your damage value be a certain value. So here's Guider 1. He's gonna say some things, just skip the dialogue, and here's the boss fight. We're gonna do this multiple times. So basically the idea of this boss fight is you want to learn the attack patterns first, get used to them, just go ahead and learn how to dodge. That's like the best thing to do. And I'm gonna show the dodges before I actually kill the boss. But here's the basic idea. She does the crescent slash, you can just walk away. If she does the portal strike, you gotta go based on the direction that she goes into the portal, because she's always gonna exit the opposite direction that she entered from. When she does this attack, just go away from her and then jump over the third one. So she's gonna go this way because she entered the portal towards the right. So that means she's exit towards the left. So there, I trapped myself in a corner. The best thing to do if you get trapped in a corner is to just try to jump instead of trying to dash away. So like there, it's good to jump, just to reposition yourself so that you're not in a bad position. So this is all phase 1 attacks. Her phase 1 attacks are pretty easy overall. However, there's some rare attacks that she does when your DPS is a little low. So just be careful for those. We're going to see if she does any of them. But right now, she's not doing any of them so far. She's being pretty nice. There's also an advanced method to fight Guider 1 that involves what we call Guider 1 minute. Basically, the idea for Guider 1 minute is to gradually make her go towards this corner, and then you just crouch cancel attack her in the corner. And usually after she's done enough attacks, she'll be put in a reel back state if you keep your crouch cancel attack rhythm consistent, and you'll be able to do a lot of damage to her. Now that's a more advanced way to fight this boss. It's not really recommended when you're starting out, but it's something you can do to improve your time fighting this boss later on. If you're not using that method, which is recommended for people that are beginning with the speedrun. Okay, here's the attack I was looking for. So basically for that ring attack, you just want to dash through. It's really simple. Dash through when it's like expanded instead of contracted. Alright, so I think we've seen most of her phase 1 attacks by now. We can go ahead and keep fighting her. And you'll see that I'm still crouch cancel attacking her after these dodges. Here's the reel back state I was talking about. So ideally, you want to basically get her against this corner so that you can reel back state her for a bunch of damage, right? But we couldn't do that, so we just got a string of damage on her. So now, when she's about half health, she's going to do this pillars attack after teleporting to the middle. Just damage tank it. Even if you're playing on advanced, just damage tank the attack so that you can at least get a bunch of damage on. It'll allow you to practice your crouch cancel attacking. That's the best way to get a lot of DPS on her. And after that, pretty simple. The rest is just crouch cancel attacking and dodging. We saw all the dodges. We saw everything else. Now, if you don't have enough health to tank the pillars attack, the best way to dodge it is to just go towards the corner, or, you know, depending on which pillars attack she did, but, you know, you basically just want to dodge it the way you see it. It's pretty easy to dodge just by sight reading, so I don't need to over-explain that one. But yeah, pretty simple fight. We now press forward. The next town is going to be Resting Town, where, of course, there are no enemies. And here you just want to just move forward as normal with the dashes. For restricted any percent, we do not grab this Afterimage. You do not need the fast travel Afterimage for restricted any percent. But you do want to grab this Echo. And if you did everything correctly, this Echo will just put you under level 4, which is perfectly good. This is exactly what we want. Because we're going to be teleporting back to this Resting Town Confluence after we finish Resting Path to get Slide, you want to tap this Confluence here. And you want to keep going. Now, here's where we'll need to speak to the Alice Merchant right here. Skip the dialogue, but make sure you don't mash too fast because you might accidentally press the wrong menu option, which will lose you a lot of time. Click buy, right twice, down once, mash 4 times effectively for this purchase, and then you can exit the menu. Very simple. Thankfully, mashing 4 times is consistent. There's no like timing to it. If you just press the cross button or confirm button 4 times, the game will allow you to buy it because there's no like minimum amount of time you have to wait for. So after you exit the menu, excuse me, you can keep going. You can jump over these enemies or you can damage boost past them. It's up to you. For now, if you're starting out, I just recommend jumping over them so that you can have the most health you can possibly work with. Now we're going to be dropping or descending into Resting Path. This area is pretty tricky to learn when you're starting out. So for the time being, I'm just going to demonstrate how you would traverse it, and then I can explain the traversal in simple terms after we're past it. Oops, that was not what you're supposed to do. So ignore that. Okay, and now that we're actually past the part of traversal that I was talking about, let me just talk about a summary of what I did during that section, and then we'll actually show it one more time because I do want to make sure that it's understood. We're going to exit the main menu and retraverse from Resting Town. So the summary of that traversal, the fireball traps that you saw spring up from the ground, you want to dash past them as soon as they shoot up the first time, the initial 2 that you come into contact with. Just dash past the first time you see that they erupt from the ground. Then when you get to the 3rd set of fireball traps where there's 2 of them that come out at the same time, you want to just jump and then dash. That's the best way to go past them. Jump and then dash. That way you'll be able to clear them without having to overthink the timing of it. After this, there's going to be a kind of tight clear you have to do between the taller enemy and the armadillo that's kind of going around the platform. You can just jump and dash between them. It's not too bad. And then there's a drop down where you have to go underneath the subsequent set of platforms. Honestly, it's not worth doing an air dash or a jump in that part. Just drop down like naturally and try to avoid enemies as you see them about to come into contact with you. Of course, after that, there's going to be another set of the armadillo plus the tall enemy. Just jump between them. You don't have to dash. The dash can honestly ruin your spacing a little bit, so just jumping is fine. And you can jump over the last tall enemy that you see past that. Then when you go down to the next level that's underneath, set of platforms where there's more fireball traps, that's where it's a bit harder to read. Again, the way you saw me traverse it is a good way to do it, and I'm going to show that one more time so that you guys can see. I think that part is where a lot of new players have trouble with the first time. And I myself had a lot of trouble with it as well. Resting Path and Field of Geo as well, when we get to that part. They can be pretty tricky. A lot trickier than they might seem. And the reason why I haven't killed any enemies as of yet is when I want to make sure to keep the XP route intact so that you guys can understand how that works. So yeah, everything's the same as I did before. And I'll go ahead and try to live commentate this section as I do it. But again, it's kind of a rhythmic traversal, so That's why I might not be talking the whole time, so please bear with me. So dash, dash, jump, air dash, just drop down, avoid that armadillo jump. I air dash because I was pretty far. Then we dash. You can wait and then dash, jump. I dashed again, my mistake. But we can fix that with just jumping over those guys. Just dash across that fireball trap. And then the rest is pretty simple and self-explanatory. Now you want to navigate up here because next we're going to be getting another weapon upgrade called the Bronze Scythe. And the Bronze Scythe is a straight upgrade over what we currently have, which is the Wooden Scythe. And this will allow us to clear the mini-boss that's in Resting Path to get Slide a lot more quickly than it would be with Wooden Scythe or our starting sword, Stars. So to activate this elevator, you see how it's not going up, right? The reason why it's not going up is because this game requires you to like kind of move off and on the elevator to activate it or just jump. So just having a way of moving on and off of it. And then this wisp, just ignore it for now. Tap that do twice. Don't run into that fireball trap like I did. Wait a little bit. Oopsie. The best way to do is just wait for the first two to shoot up, then dash, and then you can go into that gap and then dash again. Or jump and dash. Then, this is where the Bronze Scythe is. After you pick it up, just equip it right away so that you don't forget. The wisp won't be this close to you, but because I got hit a bunch of times, it was closer. Now here's the good part about killing this wisp, which you do need to do for the XP route. This will guaranteed, if you did everything as I said for the XP route up to this point, this will guaranteed level you up to level 4. And keep in mind, when you level up in this game, it full heals you. It full heals you and it fully recovers your MP. The MP part doesn't matter that much, but the full heal is the important part. Because if you took any damage up to this point, you're guaranteed to get your health back. Meaning you probably will not need to spend your glyph. Your glyph being your consumable heal that's underneath your health bar at the top left that you can recover at save points, right? You don't need a glyph because, again, if you're able to kill an enemy, you're able to immediately full heal. So do keep that in mind. That's very useful to remember. So after that, just jump, dash, jump. Tap this 3 more times because, again, good to have for what we're going to be using later on to enhance our weaponry, but not the current weaponry that we have. After this, it's just a traversal as you see. It's pretty simple. So yeah, just follow this way, keep going down. That little like slither between the enemies is a little tricky, but again, the way you saw me do it is pretty much how you want to do it. Keep going after you activate the elevator, keep dashing past these enemies. Make sure you try to dash as soon as possible to avoid the spikes that the wolf sends out. Grab the echo that you saw me grab because that echo is very important for the XP route as well. And notice how it also puts you close to leveling up to level 5. Alright, keep going up here. I like ducking to avoid this wisp and kind of manip it into descending further down so I don't have to engage with it. But then after this, you want to make sure when you're attacking this enemy, which you do want to kill, and you can kill this wisp too if it gets in the way, but you want to make sure to kill that enemy because again, it'll level you up to level 5. But as you're attacking it, make sure that you're also hitting the switch so that the elevator comes down as soon as possible. Because if you're out of range of this, which the Scythe reaches really far as you can see, but if you're out of reach of it, while you're hitting that enemy, this purple enemy that's dead over there, then you'll waste more time because the elevator won't come down as quickly. So just keep that in mind. And a good way to activate this elevator after you waited for it to kind of come down and the short period of time where you can't activate anymore, you can either jump and bonk your head to activate it by landing on the elevator, or you can just like kind of walk like this, and that both of those work perfectly fine. Grab this talent point, and at some point before the boss, make sure to open your menu and do a talent points menu. Now, a good menu I like doing for this is just going to the right. Boom, 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 boom. Very simple menu. I'll show it one more time. So this. And these are all main weapon attack ups, okay? And this is important because we're using basically every talent point that we've acquired, not just from leveling up, but also this single talent point that we acquired here, as well as the one that we got before we fought Guider 1, which of course we already used, but point being, we're using all the talent points that we have. So to the left here is the slide mini boss, really easy boss fight. I'll just show it in one fell swoop. First is the Prismbone Punisher. Just avoid the attacks and crouch cancel it. And if you have a good rhythm for crouch cancel attacking, you can just loop it. Very easy. Depending on how fast you killed it, the second one might not have spawned at the time, which is fine. Now for the second one, you want to stand at a good spacing so that you won't have to dodge the melee attack of the archer. This is about the right spacing. I'll go ahead and point out the spacing after we defeat it. There it is. The spacing is about here. You see the step I'm on? If you go down here, you might barely be fine, but anywhere like here past this, let's say third step from the bottom, is a little too close to the Prismbone Punisher, and you might get hit by the melee attack. So just stand about here and you'll be fine. And you'll also be in range for the Scythe attack. Just go ahead and crouch cancel attack it till it dies. Grab the slide, grab the talent point, map out using your map button, and then we just resting potion back to the resting town confluence that we tapped, and boom, there you go. You've cleared resting path. You have slide. Now, from here on out in the run, the movement's going to change drastically. Just go ahead and press down after you're floating from the confluence. The movement's going to change drastically, so this is the time where it would be necessary to have at least checked out the written movement guide that I made on this game for the dash slide technique. Because I'm not going to explain the dash slide in full detail, but I am going to give at least a little bit of information on it. So for dash sliding, it's performed by doing a dash and then just canceling into slide. And slide is done again by holding down and pressing the dash button. Now, the best way to dash slide is to try to cancel into slide as soon as you can. And it might sound counterintuitive, right? Because you're not going the full distance of the dash. But the reason for this is actually that you maintain your speed. You get top speed as soon as you dash. And actually, after the dash kind of goes through its initial frames, that's when you start slowing down. So the best way to dash slide is actually by canceling it into slide as soon as you can. And you see how far I go, right? It's really massive distance. If you go a little slower, you'll see I'll go about the same distance, but it's much slower. So that's why you actually want to do it as soon as possible, the dash slide. You want to cancel it as soon as possible. You'll also notice that for the slide itself, I release down after inputting the slide. The reason for this is that for some reason in this game, if you hold any down direction while you're sliding, you actually slide less distance. I'll try to demonstrate this right now, but I've already mentioned this in the movement guide as well. If you slide, let's say from here while holding down, this is how far you'll go. And if I slide without holding down, that is, I release the down direction after inputting the slide, this is how far I go. Notice how much farther that is. It might seem very small or insignificant, but over the course of a run, this matters a lot. So try to get into the habit of releasing the down direction after you input your slide for each of your dash slides. And it's just a rhythm after that. This is, of course, the best way to move horizontally in the restricted category of speedrunning any of the endings in this game. So after this, we just navigate up here towards Field of Geo. Field of Geo is a hard section, so I'm not gonna spend a little bit of time on it, but also everything is kind of one rhythm, so do keep that in mind. Also, I kind of messed it up. So yeah, how should we do this? Yeah, so Field of Geo, I do want to show like a good traversal for it, so that's why I'm gonna go back here. But basically, it's all cyclic. It's all based on cycles, and it's all based on like clean movement and platforming, which can be very difficult for starting out. Honestly, I think Field of Geo is one of the hardest sections early on into the run for when you're starting out speedrunning Afterimage. So that's why, again, I'm going back to show it here. But basically, if you're having trouble with Field of Geo, make sure to look at a top runner's way of traversing Field of Geo, like either Robbo's or another player who's run any %, and see how they traverse it and try to copy it, pretty much. That's my best advice for Field of Geo. So I'm going to do that right now. And you can see how it's all a rhythm, right? You basically just got to keep going, keep platforming, dodge the enemies. Now here's where I'll stop, because this is the choke point for a lot of people, myself included. You see these bomb throwers up here? They're holding their bombs and they're walking around menacingly. menacingly. Basically, the way they work is they have a detection range where they'll start throwing the bombs, and if you leave that detection range after they've thrown the bombs for a while, then they'll stop throwing bombs and just start walking again. The ideal way to do this is if you come up past the slide, like the slide path right here, and you see that the bomb thrower is towards the right edge of the platform, you want to wait for it to go back to the left edge, and then that's when you platform up to it, because you're not in its detection range when you're down here. But if you're like a little bit towards the upper part of the incline, then that's when you're in its detection range, and that's where things will be a little bit dangerous if you're not ready. So if you mess it up, just go back here and try to duck out of its detection range so that it resets and it'll go back to walking so that you can kind of try it again. The best way to approach this bomb thrower is not even killing it, it's just tap it and go past it. And I'll show that right now. I actually started too early, so perfect time to show the backup. If the bombs are coming towards you, just knock them away using your attack. It can either be the sword or the scythe. I recommend using the sword because it's faster. But as long as you knock them away and you're away from the explosion, then you'll be fine. So we're going to try that one more time. Just tap it. If it's about to attack you, just tap it, and then you platform past it, and you're fine. You don't have to worry about it any longer. Same thing for this upper bomb thrower. It's a little bit trickier because there's a little bit more space that it walks on, and there's more platforming you have to do in order to get to it. Here's the best way to do that. Air dash there, tap, and then you're past it. Now for this last one, which is the hardest one, there's little to no space to get past it. So the best thing we do as runners is, well, top runners, they typically damage boost past it because that's fastest. But if you're starting out, I just recommend killing it and going past it that way. I'll show the killing it. It doesn't affect the XP route in any negative way. Everything we've already done to this point sets up the XP route perfectly fine. So we're all good on that front. But if you're new, I recommend just killing it instead of doing the damage boost, especially on advanced, because advanced you'll take close to half health if you damage boost past it. So here's how that works. So come up here, wait till it's at the edge of the platform, kill it, and make sure you jump past it after killing it, because you saw it explodes on death. If you don't jump past it after killing it and you still wait there, then you'll take a bunch of damage. So make sure you platform past it after you kill it, and then you can just proceed onward. Keep going as normal. This guy up here, just jump towards it to make it attack you, and it'll get out of the way. And then you keep going. These armadillos have a weird cycle. I missed it because I messed up my jumps, so just wait a little bit if you mess it up and keep going. Jump over these guys. And I'm going to tap this confluence here. You don't have to in your run for any percent especially, but I'm going to do it here just to reset the cycles. And anytime you need to reset cycles in general for this game, you can always do that by tapping the confluence that's nearest, and it'll reset every enemy on their respective cycles. Now, of course, if you're playing on a lower graphic setting, I mentioned this early on in the video, but if you're playing on a lower graphic setting, the enemy cycles that you see for what I've been demonstrating might be slightly different than yours, but no big deal. As long as you're running consistent graphic settings, then you can just learn whatever you see in front of you, and it shouldn't change too much. Just have to make sure to adjust whatever you see. All right, let's continue. Go up here. You just want to keep going as fast as you can. Tap this bomb thrower before you go past it so that it doesn't throw bombs at you as you navigate upwards. Keep platforming. Tap the knife thrower before you jump over it. Now here's the hard part. I'm just going to do it fast and then explain after. I actually messed it up, so let's go one more time. You want to do a long jump here, and this long jump's way harder. So what I'm going to do is not something I normally do in my route, but I'm going to kill this armadillo so that I have a better chance to show you guys what the long jump looks like. Because again, this one is a little tricky at first and requires some practice. So the way I do it is I walk up to the ledge, jump. So like basically I don't jump until I walk up to the ledge, just to make sure I'm spacing myself correctly. You jump, but make sure you don't bonk. If you bonk, then you'll lose your height and immediately start falling. So make sure you don't bonk. You jump. Well, you also don't want to get the shortest jump because otherwise you'll start falling even faster. But you jump and then you do your air attack to suspend yourself, air dash, and then air attack again, and you're fine. You want to try to air attack as late as possible for the second time, but also you want to make sure that you don't air attack too late where you won't get the weapon float too low to the ground. It's pretty simple. Sorry, I'm messing it up a bunch. I don't normally mess it up like this, but it's to show that it's not as easy as it looks. But there you go. The second weapon float, you just want to make sure to have the right height before you actually do it. And the reason why we're doing this long jump in the first place is to grab the Blackwood Blade. The Blackwood Blade is the best weapon to use against the boss that we're going to fight next for double jump, which is Lost the Broken Wings. Or, Lost the Galefeather. Sorry. Lost the Galefeather. And this is the weapon we're going to use for that boss fight. Now notice how this is a completely different weapon class than we've used up to this point, which has been the sword and the scythe. The blade is works a little bit differently. Excuse me. And some runners prefer it for the rest of the run as a primary weapon compared to the one-handed sword. This is all personal preference. One is not really faster than the other necessarily or better than the other. However, for the boss fight, make sure you do have the Blackwood Blade equipped before the boss, at some point before the boss. I personally don't equip it until right before the boss, but again, it's up to you. For combat purposes, some runners prefer using the, for outside of combat purposes, some runners prefer to use the Blackwood Blade. Some runners prefer to use the one-handed sword. Basically, think of this weapon slot from now on as your outside of combat purpose. Whereas your scythe is going to be your in-combat slot for the majority of the run. Save for, of course, this exact Lost boss fight where we get double jump. But every other boss or every other combat portion of the run after this, the scythe is going to be the main focus. So just keep that in mind, because the scythe is generally the best weapon option we have for damaging the opponent. Damaging the enemies. But I just wanted to point that out. You could equip the Blackwood Blade right now, but you don't have to. Make sure you tap this knife thrower. Because of the way the cycle was, I still got hit by it, which can happen. But just make sure you tap it so that you don't accidentally get hit into the spikes and lose a lot of damage, because that just gets tilting. Slide or jump past these knife throwers right here. You can slide or jump, but if you slide, make sure you wait until they go in the air. If they don't go in the air, just jump over them. It's better. Now we're in Emerald Falls. This part of Emerald Falls, after you drop down here, this is a long jump, but it's not a hard long jump. Basically, you just jump, attack, dash, attack. Same idea as the other long jump, where we got Blackwood Blade. Well, it's a lot easier than the Blackwood Blade one, because you have a lot more space vertically to hit the jump. Jump, attack, dash, attack. Simple every time. So this is the only confluence that's available before the Lost fight in this 90% route. So if you're starting out, I recommend tapping it right away. If you're on advanced difficulty, Lost will 2-shot. And if you're on the normal difficulty, Lost will 3 to 4-shot. Depends on the attack you take damage from. But on advanced, he'll always 2-shot. Platform up here. If you're starting out, get these potions. I highly recommend. And we're going to quick slot these before we fight Lost. Because Lost, again, is a 2-shot boss and can be a choke point, even if you're not new. That monkey will always attack you if you go to his platform, so just make sure you go to the edge so that you won't get hit by it. So, again, we're going up to the Lost boss arena right here. Before the Lost boss fight, make sure you open the menu. If you haven't already equipped the Blackwood Blade, equip it. And if you're also doing the menu at this point, you should also talent points here. It would just be 2 talent points because that's how many we have right now. But it would be here and here, pretty much. And then finally, you want to quick slot the potion. Now, given the settings I mentioned that were recommended for running this game, if you're playing on controller at least, you'll have your quick slot to the analog stick. It's recommended to have only 1 potion on your quick slot for your left analog stick. The reason for this is that you might accidentally use some other potions that are elsewhere on the analog stick if you have like 1 potion that you want to use. Let's say you have a higher health potion and a health potion, which is like the weaker one, right? If you're trying to use the weaker one, your left analog stick might flick to a different direction and hit the higher health potion, and that would be really bad, right? So I highly recommend just having only 1 quick slot at a time, because it's much easier when you're using the controls I recommended. If you're using left analog stick for movement, then you don't have to worry about what I just said, because your D-pad will be consistent for getting the actual potion that you want. But this game is weird about left analog stick with the quick slot, so worth pointing that out. But if you ever need help, healing on the spot, highly recommend just flicking up on the left analog stick or whatever direction you set for your quick slot, and it'll be easy as that. All right, so the last boss fight. It's going to be quick. I'm not going to show this more than once. So if you need to see it again, I highly recommend just rewinding and copy pretty much exactly what you see. But here we go. Dash slide. Here's the last boss fight. Do a jump blade attack and immediately dash away. Go back in, get some jump attacks. Jumps attack again. Don't do a standing attack like that, like I did there. If he does the dash there like he did, then you want to do a slight standing attack or a crouching attack. And then you want to deflect these these feathers. It has a timing to it, so if you mess it up, you know, no worries at all. Just keep yourself calm and try to get back your positioning or your timing, and keep deflecting and keep attacking. The spacing that you want to stand at when you deflect the blades, the feathers, is such that you still connect your air attack with the blade, but the feathers will also apply their damage on loss when they get deflected. It's pretty RNG how much damage you actually get with it, but this gives you the best opportunity to deal the most damage consistently if you stand at the spacing where the blade air attack still connects. Now, for the blade in general, you notice how I use the standing attack once. That's just for some, like, quote-unquote more optimal damage. You don't need to worry about that. Just focus on getting the jump attacks when you're starting out. And the best way to get the blade jumping attacks is focus on trying to get the lowest height jump possible. Like so. So after you beat Loss, make sure to collect the talent point that he drops, and also, of course, get the double jump. And now that you have double jump, your movement's going to change a lot again. So for this portion, if you're confused about any of the movement I'm doing right now with the dive landing, then I highly recommend just checking out the movement guide I made. That way you won't be completely confused. So make sure, as you just saw, I did destroy that dew crystal, because you're going to need the dews from it for enhancing weapons later on. And then you just keep going in this part of Emerald Falls. The dragons are a little weird, so if they act weird to you, just kill them, honestly. Like, it's completely fine. You might lose a little bit of time, but it's better than dying, especially on advanced. Grab this resting potion, because we're going to need it for the route. And then from here, after you grab the resting potion, this is a part that runners kind of do differently based on their preferences, but here's the way I recommend doing it for your run. You dash and you just dive kick diagonal down. Then after you see this big cloud, not that one, but this one, change to a straight down dive kick. And then you want to adjust your dive kick positioning based on the pillar that you saw. So I'm actually going to show this one more time, and I know that it's going to take us pretty far back, but it's worth showing this right now so that you always land consistently in the same spot and you save the most amount of time. But basically, there's a pillar I lined myself up with, and that pillar is very useful for ensuring that you always land on the platform you just saw me land on. Okay, let me just do the movement that you would have at this point. I'm not going to do the double jump movement yet. Yeah, if you land on the very edge of that platform, sometimes the monkey won't attack you, which is fine, but I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about landing exactly there. Just focus on platforming, pretty much. So by this point, you have the double jump. Yeah, that dragon will appear there when you reload. It's really weird. It won't appear there if you fight the last boss fight and you don't retraverse, but it'll appear there if you retraverse. It's really weird. But if you get scared by it, just go the down direction and then double jump as you saw me do. All right, so let's show this one more time. Dash, diagonal down dive kick towards the right. And then after you see these big clouds, not this one, but the next one, straight down dive kick. And then you want to adjust yourself with the left part of this pillar right there. The left part of that pillar you saw above, you want to adjust yourself with that, and boom, you land on that platform every time. So for this part, just the best thing to do is just air attack there so you land here. And if you're having trouble with the sharks, just go the top route, as you saw me do. The reason I air attacked there is to adjust myself with the bottom platform that you saw me do. So that's very important, because the weapon float gives you control of your character much more easily and allow you to sweet spot your landing. So after you get here, tap the confluence because we need to teleport back to the columns. You don't need to tap it twice, of course. Get this echo, and then you go down, pretty much. So notice how the echo put me at exactly level 8, and we're actually very close to level 9 as well. That means you did the XP route correctly if you're at exactly this level. You don't have to be with the amount of experience I have, but you just have to be level 8. Or I shouldn't say have to be, but if you're at level 8, that means you did everything correctly, pretty much. That's the summary. Then when you're in Ashen Canyon, just keep dash sliding. Don't worry about these enemies. You can dash through them as long as you're dash sliding. If you mess up your dash slide and you get scared, then you can feel free to jump over them, but you don't have to. Now notice how for the Town of the Exiled portion right there, you go to the top part of that platform. If you go to the bottom part, you have to deal with the enemy, and the enemy really gets in the way. Then break this chest, grab the Scythe of Torture, equip it right away so that you don't forget. And then you do a talent points menu right here. Towards the left, down, down, or down, up. Okay, you might have an extra talent point depending on if you leveled up at some point. And if that's the case for you, just go ahead and apply this talent point right here. I'm not going to, just to keep things consistent, but just keep that in mind if you have an extra talent point. But the point is, talent points right here, talent points right here for the main weapon attack. Now that you've done that, go to this elevator, and it's very important to not activate this elevator when you're going toward the left initially. You gotta jump over the elevator so that doesn't activate. If it activates, no problem at all, you lose a little bit of time, but you know, you'll have to just activate the switch and make sure the elevator comes back down. But when you're going toward the left initially, towards the Scythe of Torture, make sure you jump over the elevator. So now we're gonna go to the Auss boss fight. Auss is the whole reason we've had this XP route up to this point, pretty much. The main thing that I actually failed to mention here, because I was kind of distracted, but my apologies. So what I mentioned about this talent point, ignore it. Please ignore it. Like, don't get this talent point. I really apologize. And yeah, so get these 2 talent points, and if you haven't already gotten the HP talent point right here, please, please, please make sure to get it, especially on advanced. In fact, this is information for you if you're playing on advanced. Get this talent point right here. Ignore what I said about this. This talent point right here ensures that we can actually keep our HP such that we can never get one shot by Auss. Now here's an issue with what I did up to this point. I normally get this talent point before we go to the columns. That is at the point that we would get rid of this sword, and you'll see that in all my runs. That's how I do it. But for this demonstration, I forgot to do it because we retraversed Emerald Falls after beating Loss. So my apologies about that. But basically, make sure to get this HP talent point at some point before you get to the columns. That's the best way to do this so that you have all the HP that you get from this talent point before you get to Auss. If you don't do this before you get to the columns, no problem. You'll have to just use the glyph before you start the Auss boss fight. Which means that, of course, you won't have the glyph to use mid-boss fight if you get hit by her. But if that's the case, just use your HP potions instead. But it's much better to use the glyph and not have gotten hit than to use your HP potion and you didn't get hit anyway, because then you won't have the HP potion for later in the run, right? But anyway, forgot to mention that. I really do apologize, but that is very, very important part of the XP route and all the things we've done up to this point before we fight Auss. So now that you're level 8, now that you've got the Scythe of Torture, now that you have your HP talent point with plus 5 HP, you're ready to fight Auss on both normal and advanced. Just platform up here, and the Auss boss fight is very difficult, so just make sure that you're ready to dodge any of your attacks beforehand, because I'm not really going to go over her attack dodging. I'm just going to show it so that you guys can see what that looks like. If anything, I'm going to focus more on the attack pattern for killing her. So obviously you want to crouch cancel attack her all the time, basically as long as you can. Keep crouch cancel attacking her. If she summons any familiars, you can dodge them after the time that they like kind of fly towards you. Especially for the familiar that you just saw, you don't have to actually dodge it until the 3rd time that it tries to swipe at you. So after that, you want to make sure to dodge her other attacks. Keep crouch cancel attacking her going into phase 2. Avoid the explosion attack, of course, because she teleports all over the screen. This attack you want to double jump, but because she didn't do any other attacks, we didn't actually have to avoid that attack with much like mental effort. So yeah, fortunately, Auss down, we're good to go. That's an ideal Auss fight, save for like maybe one hiccup I had there with the DPS. But essentially, the main idea of the Auss boss fight is make sure you keep crouch cancel attacking her, right? Try to keep crouch cancel attacking her because you can use that to interrupt her attacks, and you can also use that to make sure the fight speeds up and finishes up more quickly, so that you don't have to deal with her kind of RNG aspect. Especially for the last part, make sure you just keep crouch cancel attacking her, because otherwise, if you don't do enough damage to her, then she might do the explosion, which will guaranteed one-shot you. On normal, I'm not sure if it one-shots, but it definitely one-shots on advanced. So, after Auss is down, the whole reason why we fought Auss is to grab this Clammy Whistle. And sometimes the Clammy Whistle spawns on top of these other drops. So if that's the case and you don't grab the Clammy Whistle on the first pickup, then just keep spamming the pickup button until you grab it. But we grabbed it first try, which is nice. So as soon as you grab it, skip the dialogue that happens afterwards. Do not go to the right. Do not go to the right. Because what we're going to do now skips the cutscene that would happen if you go to the right. We just teleport back to the columns, and you don't have to worry about that cutscene at all. It's really nice. So after this, we're back in the columns. Dash slide, dive kick, dash slide, dive kick. Make sure you dodge the projectile of that enemy. And the next boss we're going to be fighting is Crystallized Wolf, which if you're comfortable with crouch cancel attacking, this boss fight is really easy. If you're not, it might be a bit difficult, so just keep that in mind. But the main idea of this boss fight is you want to crouch cancel attack it, and then when it does the icicle attack, you want to make sure you're standing at a spacing where you can deflect the icicles back, which is just attacking before they hit you, pretty much sending out your Scythe active hitbox before they hit you. And once you do that, the rest of the boss fight is very simple. You just crouch cancel attack it until it dies. Very simple. Then you go to this dock, talk with the manta ray, skip the dialogue, and boom, now you're on the overworld. Now, if you're on the overworld and it doesn't look like this, it might be depending on your graphic settings. I'm not sure. Sometimes this exact overworld has some visual glitches, and I found a good way to fix them if you're trying to capture your game is go to OBS and turn off transparency mode in your game capture. That usually helps with the way it looks in OBS, but it might not necessarily apply for your setup, so just keep that in mind. There's some glitches with capturing runs while you're on the overworld. But anyway, now that you're in the overworld, we navigate down here, and we're gonna grab this mysterious bomb, which we're gonna be using for enhancing later on. And then you click travel when you go into this island. Now, this part of the island is pretty much all movement based, so this is a good place to practice dash sliding. But just pretty much standard movement. Tap that octopus. Dive kick down here. Some people will, let me not say some people. So if you have the Blackwood Blade equipped, do a crouch attack, jump attack, crouch attack. Okay. If you have the one-handed sword equipped, just crouch to cancel attack it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me show how it looks for the Blackwood Blade, because I think that's the part that people are not aware of. Crouch attack, jump attack, crouch attack. Sorry, I messed it up once, but after you crouch attack, you can slide off and then continue. That's the best way to destroy that. Because you'll destroy it in 1 attack rotation. Very simple. But yeah, of course, if you have the one-handed sword equipped and you're good at crouch cancel attacking, that's still faster. After that, travel again off the manta ray. And now we're going to go to Holy Grounds, and this part is very, very scary for new runners. So if you're new and up to this point you've been using advanced to learn the run, I highly recommend just switching to normal for this part of the run. And if you would like, you can switch to normal and also grab the armor that's on this coast. Now, the armor that's here is a little bit tricky to grab, but trust me, it can help you if you're just looking to have an easier time in Holy Grounds. You don't have to get this armor again, but it's completely up to you. So I'm just going to show what that would look like if you would so choose. Switch to normal. And this armor is called Exotic Geta. It gives you also some main weapon attack, so it can help with clearing enemies faster as well, including bosses. Very nice. But yeah, you basically go up here, avoid getting hit by that because that can be very scary. You grab the Exotic Geta, you can equip it right away, and then you can just leave. Very simple. I'm not going to equip it right now, but that is what you would do for that traversal to get the Exotic Geta. Again, if you're submitting an actual run, do not switch difficulties midway through. Stay on the same difficulty throughout the whole run, because that's how runs are done for SRC boards. But if you're learning the run, if you're practicing, and you just want to get this armor just to help you out with doing Holy Grounds traversal, then by all means, please feel free to switch the difficulty so that you have an easier time traversing. But again, make sure when you're doing an actual run, you keep the same difficulty throughout the whole run that you started with. Okay, let me make sure it actually switched. I don't think... Yeah, there we go. Okay. Anyway, so continuing on with our normal proceedings. So we now go to Holy Grounds. And Holy Grounds, again, very, very difficult traversal. So we're going to go through it step by step. Dash slide in the first part. And then for this confluence right here, typically, if you tap it in a certain way, then sometimes the dragonfly just doesn't show up that we need to use the sequence break. So if you're worried about that, or if it happens to you, then I'd suggest just tapping it at the edge instead of in the middle. It's weird. It's really weird. I apologize for even mentioning this, but again, it's like a troubleshooting method. So if you run into this, then this is a suggestion that may or may not work for you. But you can just tap it on the edge, and usually that allows for the dragonfly to load. But there is a backup if the dragonfly doesn't load, and I'll show that backup as well. But we go up here. We can look down to see if the dragonfly loaded. It did. So you stand about here. Make sure you avoid the droplets. That way, when you stand there, it lures the dragonfly, and then you want to bounce off of it using the dive kick. And if you're confused about what I just did, check the movement guide. It'll explain what dive kick bouncing is, pretty much. Grab the dim bomb that's still left, and then you continue. Now I'm going to do this traversal again, but if the dragonfly does not load. Like, of course, it's kind of weird to show if the dragonfly still loads, but here's what it'll look like. You basically just wait here, and eventually this plant will spawn dragonflies. You just choose one to bounce off of. That's pretty much it. And the way you know if the dragonfly loaded down there is just by looking down with the right analog stick. Yeah, there you go. The dragonfly's loaded. And that's the backup if the dragonfly at the bottom is not there. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So we're just going to do it one more time, but with the regular traversal. The way you do it if the dragonfly appears as normal. Just wait for the droplets. Stand about here. If the Venus flytrap is attacking you, just stand a little bit farther away from it so that it doesn't swipe at you. Again, we go to the left to get the dim bomb. We already got it, of course, but if you didn't get it, then go ahead and get it. Then we just go past here. Bounce off this dragonfly if you're feeling uncomfortable. Usually runners do it because it's kind of safe, but you don't have to. Technically, you can still make that jump without bouncing off of it. Then you go up here. Here's the important part. I'm just going to show it and then I'll explain it. So that was the sequence break there. Notice how smooth and like crisp it was in one movement. There's a way to actually kind of judge it visually whether you'll be able to make it in one fell swoop. And I'll go ahead and explain it. But let me first show what we're doing right here because we just grabbed the scythe we're going to be using for the rest of the run. The iron scythe. So after you grab the iron scythe, go ahead and equip it by opening the menu. Enhance it twice. Enhancing it twice just means you press square, you press cross, you press square, you press cross. Like, of course, it depends on your controls, right? But you press the enhance button, you press select button, and do that again. You don't want to do anything else beyond that. Then you go to the talent points menu if you so desire, and you can go ahead and decide whether you want to increase your defense or not. Some players don't do it, but if you want to, now is not a bad time to. Then you would continue. So now that I've shown that part, I'm going to show it one more time, and this is going to require an intentional death. So I apologize for those that are saddened by that. And of course, if you don't need to see the demonstration of that again, then feel free to skip forward. There are also plenty of good runs to study, submitted by runners on SRC, if you want to look at those as well. So you wait here, bounce off the dragonfly the first time, hit the chest, then after the dragonfly goes past the Venus flytrap, that's when you can start jumping towards it again. I hope you're able to see. Basically, after the dragonfly passes by the I said Venus flytrap, passes by the plant, the one that summons the dragonflies. After it passes by it on the right, that's when you can start moving towards the dragonfly to jump on top of it. And that's the best way to do that movement. After that, just jump past these guys. You're now in the scary part of Holy Grounds, but all is fine, all is well. Just jump past these guys as normal. And here's where some runners kind of do their own thing based on how they're feeling. But you can absolutely dash slide through these guys if you're fast enough. If you mess up a couple of your dash slides, then I would advise not doing it and just go ahead and jump over them. But if you're fast enough, you can definitely slide through them and dash slide through them. But just make sure that, like, basically if you mess up a dash slide, then I recommend just switching off of that. But you can absolutely do this through all of them if you're fast enough. All right, so after you get to this point, I recommend grabbing this echo because it'll get you some levels. And you need the requisite amount of levels to get talent points that we're going to use later on. And then of course, you want to grab the confluence here. Now, here's where a couple of runners' routes diverge. Some runners decide to come back to Holy Grounds later and get to Valo like after acquiring wall jump. Some runners like myself go ahead and complete the full loop to unlock this shortcut door that's unlocked by the switch on the other side. It's completely up to you. Now, runners don't really know which one is faster at the moment, but if I myself had to guess which one is faster, it's definitely the traversal that comes back to Holy Grounds later after getting wall jump. Because the theory is that wall jump should be faster to traverse with. However, in actuality, if you're starting out, I just recommend completing the Holy Grounds loop right now at this time. Because when you're practicing fighting against Valo, it'll just take you less time to get to her if you complete the loop and unlock the shortcut. So I'm going to show the traversal assuming that you're doing the full loop right now. Tap the confluence, and then you go over here, go up this platform, ignore these books the best you can. Then you want to bounce off of that book if you're comfortable with it. If you're not, then just use the platforms. Both are perfectly fine. Tap that book if you so desire, or you can kill it. Killing it is actually better, so that you don't have to worry about it moving along with you. Killing is completely fine. Then after you get to this platform, you want to jump, tap this do for a timing trick, and then once you see the icicles move past you, that's when you can navigate up. Then you want to walk past that mage, walk basically underneath her before the fireballs hit you. Tap the lever, tap the switch there, immediately open the map, zoom out, zoom in, go back to this confluence, and boom. Now you're done with Holy Grounds. Very simple. I'm not going to show that again because, again, there are runs that you can look at as an example. And also, it's not going to have the same cycle as it did when I showed it before because I had another level that I didn't have the first time. It actually should be the same cycles, but again, if you need to look back on how I did that traversal, just feel free to rewind for it. All right. Now we leave Holy Grounds and we're going to head over to Whispering Forest. And one other thing about the traversal that's done in Grand Archives, which is where we were in Holy Grounds, where that confluence was. For the mage that shoots the icicles at you, oh, by the way, make sure to grab this resting potion all along the way to Whispering Forest. But yeah, for the mage that shoots the icicles at you, if she somehow still hits you, don't panic. You might die, of course, because typically it one-shots on advance. On normal, you might live, but if you end up living, just keep going. Don't even worry about trying to kill her, because it might lose even more time if you try to kill her than if you just try to go past her. Another thing you can do is also just deflect the icicles, but it might be hard to see when they're about to hit you, so keep that in mind that it might not be worth doing that. Okay, in any case, Whispering Forest. So just keep going here. When this rat spawns, just bounce on top of it. You don't have to worry about the platform, but hit this platform, bounce, platform, bounce, bounce. Kill this rat as soon as you can. Ideally before you platform up to it, so that you can save a little bit of time. You don't have to worry about killing that rat. I kill this plant right here because it gets in the way sometimes when you're after you hit the platform that's here. But you don't have to kill it, strictly speaking, because the XP route doesn't matter that much anymore. We're past the choke point where the XP route mattered for the most part, which was Auss. At this point, it's just general levels, pretty much. So platform. Echo is good to get, especially if you need to get a full heal. Hold to skip this cutscene, skip the dialogue. And then you want to kill this rat as well. Dash past it after you kill it. If you don't dash past it after you kill it, you might get hit by it still. So keep that in mind. Also, do I? Okay, no, never mind. We're good. So right here, you're going to do a long jump again. And this is technically a sequence break, but all it's really doing is just saving the traversal time that we take otherwise. Because otherwise we'd have to go around the top. But basically, you want to start yourself before this little crack that you see in the incline right here. This crack at the bottom, like the white one. If you're anywhere below it, it might be harder to get the height requisite to make this jump. But this is a really long jump. Thankfully, it's not that tight, but definitely you need some height and some distance, so just keep that in mind. But basically, it's the same as the previous long jumps, where the idea is basically the same, but now you have double jump available. So jump slash, dash slash. Very simple. That'll get you there every time, as long as you start kind of before this crack. You can start after it, but again, it might make it harder on yourself to hit it. See how I needed to like kind of wait a little longer for my jump. So I just recommend starting before this crack so that you can hit it without worrying about it too much. There you go. Okay, drop down. Echo is optional. You don't have to get this one. In fact, it might not be necessary most of the time. Now here's yet again another divergence for the any percent route. And I recommend if you're a new player, just follow the standard traversal that we used to do before the sequence break was found. But if you're kind of looking to save more time and if you're pushing for top level times, I can go ahead and show the idea of the advanced traversal that we do, the sequence break as it's called. So for the sequence break, you go down here, and what you want to do is something called, well, I don't think we really have a name for it. It's basically just like a pop-up. Like, you see how I popped up after the double jump when I did the slash? It's if you do the slash at a certain timing after the double jump, pretty much. And we use that along with the long jump to actually hit a very, very tight sequence break jump. So it's difficult, but doing this as your method of traversal in Whispering Forest, if you get it first try or second try or so, it can save upwards 30 seconds in your Whispering Forest traversal, which is fantastic. That's a massive amount of time save. But when you're starting out, it's not going to be worth the time save because it'll be very hard to get this within the first or second try, and you end up just losing time at a certain point. So when you're starting out, I'll show the traversal to do when you're starting out, but I'll also show a successful attempt of the sequence break I'm talking about here. So let's go ahead and try that. So jump. Here we go. That's how it looked like. Basically, you do a jump slash when you're about underneath that pillar you saw there, air dash, and then you want to do a double jump and get the pop-up that I showed earlier. But yeah, all right, so I'm going to exit out. I'm not going to progress any further, or you know what? Actually, I can show the rest of the traversal because, you know, again, if you're looking to improve your times more, you can go back to this video and look at what the top level time traversal would look like. So after you do this sequence break, you drop down here. You would normally speak to this robot here to open up the portal and select the third option, right? We're not going to do that here because I want to keep this available for when we do the original traversal for new players. But you would get this echo if you're going this way. make sure you tap that guy before he attacks you. Crouch cancel attack that barrier. Go past these enemies. Do not tap this confluence if you're doing this traversal because you just want to go fast, right? You want to save some time, so. But anyway, you go down here. Go past these enemies, and then boom. You're right here where the boss is. This would be where you'd fight the boss after you do that traversal. I'm not going to fight the boss right now. I'm just going to quit out, and I'll show the traversal that we used to do, which is the traversal I recommend for new players to do. All right, so for everyone starting out with this traversal or with this run in general, if you're taking this traversal, it's still a good idea to tap this confluence so at least you have a place to start again from, just in case you die. But basically, you go down here, go to the left, skip the dialogue, drop down, and here's where it gets a little weird. So you want to wait till that guy spawns, and then you want to jump up here. That way you can avoid the octopus, for the most part, at least. So the way I did is basically wait for that guy to kind of get up, then you dive down to where he is, then you jump up. That way the octopus, by the time you get up to it, it's basically going to completely ignore you. And if it still tries to attack you, just try to jump up and hit the platform that you saw I hit as soon as you can, so you don't have to worry about it. Drop down from there, skip the dialogue, drop down, ignore the octopus. Don't get hit like I did right there. And if you, of course, if you get hit, just feel free to pop a glyph. No problem. Jump up. Feel free to tap the octopus if you feel like it's going to hit you. And here we go. So now we're on to the failure fight. So for the failure fight, it's pretty much scripted at this point for runners, and I'll show what the scripted fight looks like. And there's a couple of backups in case things go wrong. But basically, you want to double jump attack it, and if you're not comfortable with double jump attacking, just practice it. You know, practice makes better. So make sure to practice it on your own if you're comfortable with crouch cancel attacking, but you're not comfortable with double jump attacking. Basically, you double jump attack it, dive down, double jump attack, dive down, etc. And then once it starts flying around, make sure you hide in one of the corners. The right corner is going to save you more time, but sometimes you might not be able to get to that corner because it just won't be as safe. So if you mess up the initial part of the fight where you're getting the double jump attacks, then just hide in the left corner. And in general, if you just want to have something that's safe and generally more stable, hiding in the left corner is fine. So just make sure you hide in the left corner and crouch as it swipes. And then after it dives down, avoid the dive down attack and just crouch cancel attack it until it dies. And it's very, very simple. If you do everything right in that sequence, then it should be dead by then. If it's not dead, it might do a third attack where it dives down towards the middle. You'll still be able to kill it, but just make sure to avoid that attack as well if it happens. All right, let's do it in action now. So deflect that, dash under, deflect, and keep attacking it. Now it's going to go into the second phase. Just crouch in the corner, avoid this attack, and you crouch cancel attack until it's dead. Very easy, very simple. So that's failure. Now that you've beat failure, grab the wall jump ability and you start using it right away pretty much. It's safe to kill this octopus because it gets in the way for this part of the traversal. And you saw I almost died, right? So if you feel like you're almost dead, because this is of course advanced, where spikes can kill me thereafter, I'm gonna go ahead and use the potion so that I don't die to the spikes. But after this, you just scale up this wall. Then you want to go to this, so just before the crevice here, and basically you want to slide and then you want to dash. And if you dash correctly, or like as long as you don't dive kick basically, then you'll skip the cutscene trigger that happens here and you'll save a little bit of time. So I'll show that right now. So there's a cutscene trigger right there that we just skipped. And that allows for us to save like maybe 2 to 3 seconds. More like 2 seconds, but yeah. Then you keep going. And of course, if the cutscene happens, then just hold the skip and skip the dialogue. No big deal. Platform up here. And then now, if you did this path, then you haven't spoken to the robot yet. So speak to the robot. Select the third option. Hold the skip. and boom, the portal's open. You can go to it to Forest Foregone. Forest Foregone, yet another hard section. So don't take it for granted. Especially at this point in the run, if you made it this far, the enemies are going to hit hard from here. So I'm going to potion up right now to get myself to full health, and we're going to continue. But basically, you want to go this way. The best way to avoid this guy is to stand at the right spacing and then just jump over the beam, what's it called, the projectiles. Just keep going. This mosquito is fine to kill. Just keep in mind that it explodes on death, so be aware of that. And again, if you're destroying this barrier with the Blackwood Blade, crouch attack, jump attack, crouch attack for that. If it's a sword, then you just crouch cancel attack 4 times. All right, now that you've done that, we're going to fight the next boss, which is the Unstoppable Devil. And for this boss fight, before you fight her, you want to make sure to try to pick up the Moonlight Blade. Now, you don't have to pick up the Moonlight Blade, but it will give you more HP for the run. And generally speaking, the strats I'm going to show later on in the run will involve using the Moonlight Blade special attack. So for the purposes of this tutorial, please understand that I'm going to be using the Moonlight Blade. But yeah, skip the dialogue, hold the skip some more dialogue. Immediately once the boss fight starts, there's going to be no time. She'll start to attack you, so make sure you try to pick up the Moonlight Blade as quickly as possible and then open the menu. Like this. And then go to the menu, equip the Moonlight Blade. Or I said Moonlight Blade, but you get what I mean, Moonlight. Equip Moonlight. Go to talent points. This is probably the biggest talent point menu we have in the run so far because we have so many talent points since last time we opened it up. But basically, hit this, basically hit whatever like critical damage stuff in the initial branches that you haven't already hit. Then the important part here is not these two, but rather setting up for getting Iron Bastion later. So make sure you get these two. These are very important to get because we want to get Iron Bastion later on, which is the talent points that we're kind of setting up to this point. But also understand that you have to eventually get Wisp of Valor. So you're going to also get that talent point right there too. Hope that makes sense, guys. So here, again, just going over the important talent points for this menu. This talent point right here, this talent point right here, these two, and then you want to get these two as well. If you can, go ahead and get these, because these are going to set you up for Iron Bastion later. But in terms of the higher priority talent points to get, these will be more important to get, because you want to get Scythe attacks so that you actually deal more damage as soon as possible, pretty much. All right, after you've done that, your menu's done. Now you're going into the boss fight. So the Unstoppable Devil is a little bit of a tricky fight, but if you're comfortable with sight reading and dodging, then you'll be fine. There are a couple of special dodges you can do based on the attack patterns that she does, but if you're a more advanced player, then there's also a slightly unstable manipulation that we've been trying to implement for her to not be able to do the Ice Rain, which would save 8 to 9 seconds. It saves a lot of time, so it's worth going for, but it doesn't always work for some reason, so that's where it's a little tricky, but it's worth going for if you're trying to improve your time. I'll try to do it in this example, but if I don't get it, then understand that it's a little bit unstable. But the idea of it is to stand at a certain spacing away from her so that she doesn't do the Ice Rain attack. And the other idea of it is just to kill her quickly with the crouch cancel attacks, right? But for that to be able to be possible, you still have to be comfortable with crouch cancel attacking in general. Oh, I fell asleep. I fell asleep. My apologies. But yeah, that's the idea. You kind of saw the spacing I was standing at, and of course, it's nice that we tap the confluence here so that we don't get sent all the way back to the beginning of the Whispering Forest. If you die to Unstoppable Devil, just go this way because it'll be faster. And of course, you have wall jumps, so you don't have to worry about doing the sequence break. But yeah, the best way to avoid the spike attack that she does is just to jump. That's a good way to avoid it. I'm not at the right spacing anymore, so I'm just gonna go balls to the wall pretty much. Oh my goodness. I apologize, guys. But yeah, as you can see, on advanced, she one-shots. And actually, from this point on, most enemies and bosses in the run on advanced will one-shot. And even on normal, the final boss, Guider 2, or Guider the Shadow Moon, will also one-shot. So things get very scary from here, pretty much. That's the summary. Also, if you want to do the fast way to get back to the boss after you've already died to her, you can just go down this way. But just watch out for the mosquito. Okay, we got the Ice Rain attack, sadly, because again, I wasn't at the right spacing. So a good way to dodge it is to go in the corner there, and just make sure you leave the corner before she explodes again after the attack. And then the rest is simple, crouch cancel attacking. So skip the dialogue after that. She sends you down to the confluence below. And here's again where another hard traversal begins. So you can go up here, or you can choose to go down via the where the warrior is, pretty much. Don't worry about the death. I needed to show this traversal again, so. But as you can see, again, every enemy hits hard at this point. And the reason I'm even living right now through these enemies is with Moonlight equipped, because otherwise these mosquitoes would one-shot. But yeah, anyway. You can also go down here, bounce on that guy, dash over this guy, and immediately dash light away from him, so you don't get hit by the blade attack, the disc blade. I like bouncing on that, jump over this, jump over the projectiles, jump on top of the guy again. If the mosquito's there, you gotta kind of wait it out, but usually if you don't die, it won't be there. I like bouncing on top of that guy, but be careful because it can do the other attack where it actually would hit you from there. But yeah, anyway, keep going through this. For these armadillos, just wait until they jump and then slide under them, pretty much. That's a consistent way to dodge them. If they do the other attack, where they charge, then you can just jump over them, and it's pretty easy to see. And then the rest of it is straightforward as you see. If you're having trouble with those enemies right there to the left, just tap them before you go past them. And now we're in Silent Coast. So normally runners go the bottom path right here you see. But you can also go to the top path, and I think it's faster, but it's also a little bit more dangerous because the enemy density is higher. But once we get here, you want to get the main, you want to get this ring upgrade. It's called the Twins Right Ring, which is going to improve your main weapon attack for a downside that we don't really care about. And a good way to get this if you have Moonlight equipped is before you get to the top of the wall where the platform is, just go ahead and use the Moonlight special attack, and then, which is of course up attack, and then go ahead and pick up the Twins Right Ring. Dive down, and if you're scared of dying, go ahead and tap the confluence here. Now, here's an important part I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain it right now, and then I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to explain it again. So, Silent Coast used to be a big choke point in runners' runs for a long time in running this game, especially for any %, because basically we needed to get across Misty Waters, right, to get the Field of Hydro through the boat dock. The issue is that in order to get across Misty Waters, you have to have the cutscene with Ian trigger, and Ian sometimes didn't show up in our runs, and it was happening more and more over the course of our runs, times getting cut down more and more. But pretty recently, it wasn't like super recently, but it was relatively recently at least, like a few months ago, thanks to Tateha Belmondu, who's another runner of this game, we found out that if you open the map at some point after beating Runic Guardian, then Ian is guaranteed to show up at the boat dock, meaning the cutscene will occur, and you can make it across the Misty Waters because your boat has its lamppost lit. So that is a very important thing to do. Make sure you open the map at some point, after beating Runic Guardian before you get to the boat dock. I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna explain it again, because again, it'll be something that you might forget even after I just mentioned it. And when I do it, it'll look really weird. It's like, why is he opening the map? But that is why I'm doing it. I'm gonna explain it again after that. So here we go. Oh yeah, and then for this traversal, here's what I like doing. Just watch and learn. Moonlight right here to deflect and tap that bunny. And keep going up here. And that's a very stable, consistent strat to get past those enemies, because otherwise they are a little bit of a problem. Oops. I messed up a little bit. It's all good. You can get the echo if you'd like, but you don't have to. Now here's the Runic Guardian fight. Very simple, very easy. Just do the crouch cancel attacking. Make sure to jump over this attack and keep crouch cancel attacking after that. Of course, if you're on advanced, it'll one-shot, so just watch out still. Don't get hit by it. Open the map. And then we keep going. And you can dive down if you so choose. You can also just, you know, dive down straight down, but dive down. And now you see that Ian showed up. So notice how the light post is lit, and now we can make it across to Misty Waters. This is the time of the run where you can rest your hands, you can chill, you can take a sip of your water, you can get up and stretch, you can go and grab another bottle of water if you want. I wouldn't recommend going to the restroom. You don't have quite that long, but you know, if you need to do anything else that I mentioned before that, this is a good time to do it, because this is the most downtime you have in the run up to this point. Now, why did we open the map? For some reason, the game kind of expects you to open the map, I guess. I don't know. Like, by the time you get to this point in the run, the game kind of expects you to open the map to look where you need to go to get to Misty Waters, to get to Field of Hydro, to meet with our mentor Eros, right? But we don't know why this is associated with opening the map after beating Runic Guardian. But just trust that you need to do it to make sure that the boat cutscene always works. Because trust me, if you start to run this game, especially 100%, you'll start to notice that the boat cutscene does not occur more often and more often as you run the game more. But anyway, now we're in Field of Hydro. You can choose to get that echo I got before if you so desire. Going down, this is all a movement section for the record, so whatever movement you're comfortable with, go for it. Drop down here and speak with Samsara, skip her dialogue. Now you have the swim ability. Excellent. So after you do this, you want to, oh dear. Okay, there we go. I don't know where, I forgot where Holy Grounds was. Anyway, you want to go open the map, go back to Holy Grounds, use that last resting potion. And this is where the runs converge again, depending on what you did earlier in Holy Grounds when I mentioned it. So if you went and did the full loop already, then you don't need to go to the left, you just go straight to the right because the door is open here. If you did not do the loop already, then you're basically gonna do the traversal that I showed earlier with the loop that you do. But instead of going down to this door, you just keep going to the right to get to the Valo boss fight. So let's show that right now. Actually, let me show the more optimal version, because I did optimize this a little bit. So go down here. And you can dash through that guy if you're feeling confident. If not, then just jump over him. It's fine. And boom. Now we're at the Valo boss fight, or at least just before it. When you're starting out, I recommend hitting this shortcut because you might die to Valo a few times. Valo, speaking of which, my goodness. This boss is probably the hardest boss to learn in the run, and probably one of the hardest bosses to learn in the game in general. One of them, at least. Because this tutorial is intended to be self-contained and comprehensive, I will explain how to fight Valo. However, I'm going to show the dodges first before I actually continue fighting her, because I think the dodge is the most important part. You can fight her comfortably with whatever method you want as long as you're able to do damage to her. But the dodging is something that is the hardest thing to grasp overall, and that's the thing that will kind of get your run to lose a lot of time. Because Valo is the point in the run where you do lose a lot of time when you die to her. So before the Valo boss fight though, you want to check your talent point menu, and the more you do runs, you don't need to do this, right? But you want to check your talent point menu and see if you need to update anything in here. And the only thing you should really concern yourself with at this point in the run is whether you have Iron Bastion. If you have Iron Bastion, or if you have Iron Bastion at least ready to go, then you're good. But you don't even need to apply it right now, because you're gonna have to open your menu again to equip the Scorching Judgment Greatsword that we're gonna be picking up after we beat Valo. So for the time being, we're not gonna apply any talent points, but just keep in mind, if you want to just make sure that you have enough of a talent point path to be able to get Iron Bastion, then now is a decent time to check. Now is also a decent time to check whether you have the right equipment equipped that you want to use. I do not have the Twins Right Ring equipped. You should be equipping this as soon as you get it in Silent Coast. When we got it after we platformed up that wall where that platform was in Silent Coast, equip the Twins Right Ring right away. Don't wait like I did. I messed up. But make sure you equip it right away. Finally, if you don't have your potions quick slot, make sure you quick slot your potions. Alright, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and fight Valo. I'm going to first just show the dodges, because phase 1 has a lot of attacks that can possibly happen, and there are a lot of different dodges you can do. So she sometimes starts with a parry. Just don't attack her when she does the parry. That's the key. When she does this attack, just jump. It's completely fine. And that attack you can just dash away. That attack you can just jump over. This attack is good to dash under. As you saw, of course, the parry is there, so you just don't attack her. For that attack, it's actually fine to jump in between the first two attacks, or you can just dash away. Either one is okay. Same thing with this one. Just walk away from her. So notice how when I dashed over her, that didn't work, right? A better way to dodge that attack is actually, so instead of like just jumping over her, right? You actually want to, it's kind of weird to describe, but basically you want to jump and then bounce off on top of her, because then she'll get confused which way to go. So I'll show that dodge one more time once it happens. And then of course I'll show the, but yeah, notice how when you bounce on top of her, she kind of gets confused and you're able to dodge it really comfortably. So these are all the rest of the dodges that we haven't seen so far. I'll start attacking her soon because something special is going to happen when we start attacking her. So she'll start building up like EX charges. She'll start glowing. And this is like a key mechanic of the Valo boss fight. Is that basically the more times you hit her, the more she builds up like a quote-unquote super meter. You can think of it like a super meter. And that's where she starts doing enhanced attacks, pretty much. So those dodges are slightly different, but honestly, it gives you more of an opportunity to do damage on her. But I think we've seen all the attacks that we need to see. Pretty soon, she's supposed to do the screen attack. I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll start attacking her now, so I can show the enhanced attacks. Notice how when you attack her, basically, if there's a noise that's made and the flash and glow, the yellow glow that she has goes away, that means she's about to do the enhanced attack. But just listen out for the sound effect. Listen out for like the whoosh. It makes like a whoosh sound. And you notice how I'm attacking her, right? I'm using crouch cancel attacks. You can also use Rondo, which, you know, if you're going to use Rondo, which I'll go ahead and get Rondo so that I can show what that will look like in combat, because some runners do use Rondo for this boss fight. But if you're going to use Rondo, make sure to get that before fighting her. Don't attack her during that, though. But yeah. So now that you've kind of gotten her health down, she goes into phase 2. Just use that to ready yourself. If you need to heal any health, use the glyphs at that time. Now that she's in phase 2, she's basically going to do damage to herself all the time. And even if you don't attack her, she's still going to take damage. But the thing is, we're attacking her still because we want her to still die faster, pretty much. But she's going to be doing enhanced attacks all the time, so it actually gives you more of an opportunity to do damage to her. So yeah, what can happen if you're too close to the corner when she does that attack is you have no space to run away during that. So in that situation, you actually just want to jump over her before she does the first 2 swipes. And it can be tricky. A lot of runs are lost to that situation, and it's kind of hard to see when that situation is about to happen. But we'll be able to see the fight from start to finish again when we go here. Because again, this is an important fight to learn. Oops. I messed up. I didn't see that she did the enhanced. But yeah, you can see how some of the Rondo strats look. The idea of the Rondo strat is you're using the instant dive kick, which I mentioned in the movement doc. But basically, it's your pressing jump, and then you press down shortly afterwards. And you do that after doing Rondo. That will allow you to still be on the ground so you can do some crouch cancel attacks. All right, let's show this one more time. I'll try to get a clear on this one. And again, if you're having trouble with Valo, feel free to equip that exotic Gaeta that I mentioned earlier. That's what we picked up from that boat dock. It's the leg slot armor. It'll help a lot for this fight. Another dodge you can do here is go to the corner. It's just too far away. Yeah, for this enhanced pillars attack, you can go in between, or you can just run away from her. It's up to you. Now she's going to go into phase 2. And let's wrap up this fight. Oops. No big deal, because we only lose like a couple 18 damage hits. So for this last part, make sure you hide in one of the corners. It can be either left or right one, doesn't matter. So you can dodge the full screen attack that she does when she dies. And then after this, you're done. Congratulations, you've cleared Valo. Make sure you grab the Scorching Judgment that she leaves behind. We're going to be using this for a parry. Iron Bastion. And actually, in fact, you can decide to equip Scorching Judgment right now. We're gonna do that before I forget. But basically, once you equip it, you also in the same menu want to make sure to apply Iron Bastion in. And if you have any spare talent points, feel free to apply them anywhere else if you would like. Although if you're looking to save a maximum amount of time, you shouldn't do more menuing than you absolutely need. Make sure to get this resting potion right here because we're going to use it for the very last fast travel out after we get the key to God's Hall. But we're towards the tail end of any percent, restricted any percent. You stuck with it this long, I really appreciate it. I apologize for the length of this video. It's naturally going to happen though for a video that seeks to have the most amount of detail. Make sure, by the way, when you're going down this, avoid that ice attack the book does, because otherwise it'll one-shot you on advanced. It's really troublesome, so just don't forget that. But yeah, appreciate your sticking with it, because again, this video seeks to have as much detail as possible for this run. So now we're in Sunken Sanctum. We have swim, so we can go underwater just fine. Make sure you grab this confluence before you leave, because we're gonna go back to it. If you're starting out, I recommend going towards the right here and making a loop around to get that treasure chest that you see right there. It's called the Moonshadow Robe. And the Moonshadow Robe will help you as armor basically not get one shot by Guider. Because even on normal, you'll get one shot by Guider the Shadow Moon or Guider 2. On advanced, of course, you'll get one shot, but basically it'll allow you to take more parry hits. It'll allow you to use Iron Bastion a lot more. And we'll talk about Iron Bastion soon. Don't worry. But anyway, if you're not getting Moonshadow Robe, you just continue down here. And then you go down to the right. Wait for these cycles. All right, and then we're just getting the key here, so there's nothing else really down here that's notable. So immediately after grabbing it, just open the map, resting potion back to that confluence we tapped earlier, and we're making the final traversal towards God's Hall. Sometimes you can sneak past these cube cycles. In fact, there's a neat little trick you can do that's not really consistent, but it can help for getting past the cycles without waiting for them. Basically, up here. So I'm gonna go back up there. If you're about like this distance from the wall, okay, I went too far, but you can use the walk squatting to help you space it. But if you're about right here, you can jump and then dive kick down. Okay, it's not far enough out from the platform. Like maybe here, I think. But basically you can jump and then dive kick, and eventually you'll actually be able to sneak past this even if the electric cubes are active. It's really strange. I don't know why it works, but I'm assuming it's because this terrain is like not the way it actually looks or something. But anyway. That's that. It's a neat little trick for saving time, but it's not always gonna really save time or help you. It's just kind of swaggy, I guess. But in addition, if you're starting out, I recommend getting the glyph here as well as getting the echo to get more levels. And more levels equals an incremental amount of HP, but this HP can make a difference, trust me. Especially if you're using the Iron Bastion. The more you use the parry, the more HP you have to work with if you got more levels early. So it can be very effective. But yeah, what you saw me do there was I looked down to see the cycle, and then I made sure that the cycle was good, dropped down with the dive kick, immediately dash slide so you don't have to wait any longer, and boom, you're out of the cube section with, just like that. All right, key is used. And we finally make our way to the final boss.
On this side looks,
I love how we have a 2-hour tutorial on a 40-minute run. That's peak. All right. Again, if you haven't already done that at this point, make sure to equip the Scorching Judgment, and make sure you also have Iron Bastion applied in your talent points. If you've done so, then you don't need to do any other menuing here. Tapping the confluence is just in case you die. But if you're going for top level times, of course, you don't need to tap this confluence. All right, then we just dash slide up. And the Guider boss fight. So Guider 2, right? We call this Guider 2. Guider the Shadow Moon is what she's actually known as in the game. Guider the Shadow Moon is basically the same as Triple Question Marks Guider or Guider 1. At least for phase 1. For phase 2, it's very, very different, and if you're familiar with the dodges from phase 1, then you can use those as a basis for phase 2. However, phase 2 has a couple of other attacks you should be aware of, and that's where we're going to be employing the Iron Bastion as a parry. And that'll just help with not only making the dodges easier, but also ensuring that we can actually get some damage in return, because it'll speed up the process of killing the boss. Now, in terms of the dodges themselves, I'm not going to show them in as much detail as I did for Valo. So if you need to look back on some of the dodges, I recommend rewinding. But for this, you just investigate this device. That should be the only option. And boom, now we're in the Guider the Shadow Moon boss fight. So to start, she does a pillar attack every time. You can just dodge in the corner or dodge the respective dodge, or you can decide to parry it if you want. Up to you. The parry doesn't really save DPS though if you're good at crouch canceling, so either one is okay. But now we're in phase 2. You can choose to parry this attack, or you can just dodge it, but I showed the parry just so that you guys have an idea of what it looks like. This is the attack that you really want to parry. And notice how we're really low on HP now. And in fact, I made a mistake because I forgot to mention that the parry still does damage to you. So I should have used the potions as soon as I did the first couple parries. But in the meantime, we're going to see the first part of phase 1 again. And again, we saw that she one-shot us, right? So again, if you're uncomfortable with a Guider, then just make sure to equip the armor that we picked up before, including the Moonshadow Robe if you got that. But yeah, she should almost always go to phase 1 after this. Oh dear. Did I miss some attacks or something? Probably. But yeah, now she's in phase 2. So yeah, that's the dodge without the parry. This attack is weird to dodge, so just pay attention to the direction that she entered the portal in, and then you can jump. And then kind of fade into the other direction so that you can avoid it when she drops down. If you're getting trapped in the corner by that attack, that's when you can use the parry. Basically, the parry is for kind of getting out of the tricky situations and tacking on some damage where you wouldn't otherwise be able to damage her. But again, make sure you're watching your health because the parry still does a lot of damage to you. Like in this situation, I would be trapped in the corner, so that's what the parry is good for. Boom, now she's down. So yeah, if you managed to beat Guide of the Shadow Moon, congratulations. You've completed the restricted 90% category of Afterimage. At this point, you should hold to skip this cutscene because it'll affect your in-game time if you let it play out fully. You'll be presented with this very gloomy cutscene to show that you've reached the bad ending for Renee. And after this, very, very important, make sure to keep your recording going through this cutscene all the way until you get back to the main menu and you can go back to save file select and show your in-game time, because you need to show your in-game time for submitting to any Afterimage speedrunning category. You need to show your in-game time. Now for World Flower, you don't have to submit in-game time, but it's still good to show the save file that you finished on so that people know that you did the same save file that you started with. So there we can see our in-game time. And there you go. That is all for the Afterimage restricted 90%. Hope this was comprehensive, and I hope this was informative for you if you're looking to get into the speedrun. And again, I do apologize for the length, but regardless, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the YouTube comments or in the Discord server, which will also be linked in the description. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you out there in Endgarden.